faceoff. Shoots it, deflected. Right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkman on that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 56 of Tendy Talk, presented by the BLPA and the Hockey Podcast Networks. I'm your host Joe, better known as Washed Up Goalie on social media. This week I chat with Warrior goaltender Michael Ullmer. Michael and I first crossed paths at the Sota Stick Hockey Classic 2 years ago and have had a friendly back and forth ever since. He is also an Army veteran who plays on local Warrior teams. So, without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Michael. Michael, how are you?
Not too bad. Can't complain too much about the day.
Yeah, it's Monday's almost over. We got that going for us, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me on the podcast. I know we've kind of been going back and forth a little bit, and I knew you'd be able to hop on pretty a little bit easier than some of the other people I try and schedule it. So I appreciate that.
Oh, not a problem.
Yeah, I was last week communicating with a few fellows, and they both said, "Yeah, I'm totally in, but let's do it after the new year." I was like, "Okay, I can do that." Yeah.
So, like my life until this upcoming weekend, like I'm free and just prepping for that. And
you're going out to Philly for a tournament, aren't you?
Yep.
What tournament is that?
The USA Hockey Warriors Classic.
Oh, fun.
In Vegas the last 5 years, but for what, I don't know why it went to Philly this year, but
I was gonna say they thought, maybe you guys were having too much fun in Vegas. Let's bring you to Philly instead.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like I've heard some of the stories from the guys that went on the earlier on tours of it, and they're very memorable.
Yeah. Well, you get a few military members together anywhere, and it's going to be that way. I've got a good friend who's a retired Navy carrier pilot, and he just says we need to go to Key West for a week. I was like, a weekend's good. He goes, no, we don't go for anything less than a week. I was like, I don't know if I should go with you down there. I don't know if I can handle that. I just noticed I'm wearing my Sota Stick shirt from the year we got to play against each other. Was that about 2 years ago?
2, 3. It was before the whole COVID pandemic. So like I was hoping that it would come back that next year, and that just all got shot down.
Yeah, I was talking to Landon, he was hoping maybe last year he could have, but there was so much in limbo, he didn't know. And then it looks like the Goons for Good tournaments are going to replace the Sota Stick because it gives them the opportunity to maybe do it more than once a year.
Yeah. So, I know that last Goons for that was just a blast that weekend, and you dodged me. And
I was so bummed. So I signed up, and my nephew was getting married that weekend. And I was going, okay, maybe I'll have to miss one game because, evening wedding. And then the little jerk sends us the text. Well, he has his mom send it, first of all, that he wants us there for family photos. And I'm like, he's a good kid. His parents were divorced when he was young. And my ex-brother-in-law, he was technically his stepdad. And so early on, there was a little bit of, he never just disowned him, but he kind of felt my nephew felt a little bit out of place there for a while. And so my brother-in-law and I, we never stepped in as the father figure. My ex-brother-in-law has always been that to him. But, we kind of stepped in as that male role model in some early, very formative years for my nephew. And he's always remembered that. So when he asked me and the family to be there for family pictures, it's like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. Somebody else gets to, but I don't know. I was texting Landon before early on, and I was like, hey, this is what I got going on. And I knew he could see our back and forth. So I was surprised that they didn't get us to play at least on the first day, because the first Sota Stick, me and the fellows over at Hockey Arsenal were going back and forth, ridiculously before the tournament. And surprise, surprise, we were the first game to kick off the tournament. Kind of like, yeah, everybody's been watching you two go back and forth. Let's see you battle it out on the ice now. And that was a fun one because I think we beat Andy's team like 9-2. So we're going through the handshake line, and he is like, yeah, didn't really back up anything I had to say there, did I? But it was fun. Andy, I've had him on the podcast. He's a former goalie turned forward because of his bad knees.
Yeah, I've done, like, I do the split every once in a while, but I still try and, my body's folding up, so staying as a goalie as long as I can. And
yeah, and I don't know, I just think it's more fun.
oh yeah,
You know, yeah, you can score goals and that's fun and all that stuff, but just making that play on a breakaway or, catching that glove. When I watch a hockey game, I don't know about you, but when I watch a hockey game and see a play, I never feel that puck on my stick, but I watch that, nice save in front of the net. I can feel that on my, in the leg pads, or I can feel, a big windmill save. You can feel that puck going into a glove when you watch it on TV.
oh yeah, that's even from just playing beer league and then seeing the pros do it. Like, I have that moment where I feel I could have done it just as well as them if I was younger and
Yep.
more talented, but
had the same defense as them. had the same back checking.
Oh yeah, I anytime I get back checking is phenomenal. But like, I love those, just you're in the moment saves and everyone's amazed that you did. Sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's I knew what I was doing. But
Yep.
I'll always take the credit for it because it's fun.
Yeah, there's a few times where the puck or the ref comes to get the puck from me, and he's like, "Hey, that was a nice save," and I look at him and go, "It was all luck, buddy." Like, and he just kind of look at me like, well, "That's being a little too honest."
Yeah, there's times the refs will come up and they'll try and, how did you do that? I just did. It was reaction.
Yeah,
and I have no clue how I did it.
I didn't give up.
Yeah,
we see Marc-Andre Fleury. He's probably the last best example of that these days. Of that generation of your technique, but you don't give up, and that's where those crazy saves come from. I remember going to goalie school, and our goalie coach, he always told us, he's like, I don't want to see you guys making the big highlight reel saves, because if you make those, that means you are out of position. Those are desperation saves where you do whatever you can. And there were two pieces of truth I took from that. One, it's absolutely true. A guy like Patrick Waugh, I thought was boring to watch for so long, but that's because he was so technically sound. He didn't have to make the big save. But at the same time, he mentioned, it's the desperation save. And to me, that desperation save is not giving up on the play. And there's a lot of kids these days, if it's not, they're technically out of position, they're kind of like, well, I have no chance. And they just kind of give up.
Oh yeah. Like, I catch every once in a while during a practice, I'll catch myself doing that. And like, I'll get mad at myself in the moment but realize it's practice,
Yeah.
I'm not going to really go crazy. But when it comes to the games and that same moment happens, I don't know if it's just instinct takes over or what it is, but all of a sudden my body is bending ways that I couldn't stretch before I started. And hopefully I get a piece of the puck and it makes it look like a phenomenal save in front of the 3 or 4 fans.
Well,
benches erupt, and I just go on and act like it was normal. And
there's that save from the Sota Stick tournament where my buddy Charles from Bone Jack Designs immortalized it, where I'm literally doing the barrel roll. My one of my old teammates said it looked like I was an equal sign, and it was just not giving up. And I remember I kicked that puck up out of the way, and it was just don't give up, do whatever your body allows you to do.
Oh yeah,
there were a few pictures of me from that tournament where you look at it and you're like, wow, how are limbs going those ways? I don't get it. One of my high school teammates asked me if there were any pictures of me from that tournament where I was actually on my feet. It's like, yeah, maybe not. In the handshake line, I think there were a few. So let's talk about you and your playing days. When did you first, get started with hockey and, immersed into this great sport?
I want to say it was mid 80s, later 80s. Because I started like first year might, where everyone was a skater.
Yeah.
And you just got, here's your rotation list of who's going to eventually play goal for this game. And you get your one time throughout the season to be a goalie. And you were back to just learning position play and going forward. And that one time it was at an outdoor rink, not too far from where I lived. And it was just as cold as it could be, probably a December out here. And I got the nod that it's your put on the pads. And I think that was my parents' absolute nightmare. For me, it was, I finally get to be a Casey moment, even though it's mites, it's cold outside, we're playing outside, but I get to be, the guy I looked at and followed the early portion of my life as a goalie, because that's all we had out here was the North Stars were who you watched. And John Casey was at that time the guy that we had, and kind of just followed him for ever and got yelled at for mimicking him when I played in net. And like, you don't need to sit there and point where the puck's going. Just stand there and play.
Yep.
And I pointed at everything that was going on, and like my coaches hated it, but I just loved the moment.
Yeah. So like you said, mom and dad feared it. How did they take you just loving the position?
Even to this day, they still say that was the worst thing they could have done. Was they always encouraged me to play every sport that I could, and hockey's that one that stuck with me. But being a goalie, as soon as they kind of saw the price tags, even back the 80s, early 90s, like it was, I can't believe you want to do this. Are you sure? You can be a skater for a lot less. You can do all these things so much cheaper, but nope, I want to be a goalie. And then as the years went on and NHL became a bigger following, like I started seeing the new, like Belfour, Patrick Waugh, Grant Fuhr, just seeing those guys, and just became enthralled with the idea of being a goalie, thinking at 9, 10, I can be one of those guys when I'm older. And that's back the old style, and I love that style versus the new stuff. And it's just phenomenal to watch, going back, seeing some of the documentaries that have come out with the various goalies and just how they played versus what's going on today, and how much it's changed.
It's so easy to get caught in a rabbit hole of watching goalie highlight videos from like the 80s and 90s. And it's just like such a different way of playing the game. And, I think the one thing that sticks out to a lot of people is, there was that time, the Garth Snow days where things were getting just ridiculously big. But you look at the equipment today, it's still pretty big compared to those 80s and early 90s goalies. I mean, you look at Marty Brodeur, and I've said it before, even at the end of his career, when he stood up, you could see his breezers.
Yeah.
Goalies today, they stand up and you don't see their breezers. It was a, did we have giant gloves? I still have my giant Vaughn glove, which is probably the biggest one ever made. Did we have the floaters? Yeah, but those were different ways of making yourself look big. Where the equipment today is just, is it technically slimmed down? Yeah, but they've made it bigger in other ways that I think almost make it harder to be as athletic as I would say we still are, but let's be honest, as we once were.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like the first time after I got out, I never played high school. Like I finished in bantams, and like I just didn't fit in with the high school crowd. So I kind of, I hung them up, went on with my life for a while. And when I got out of the military in 2011, I saw an opportunity to come back and just play. I dug out my old gear that was my only new set I had ever had from, I think it was like 94, that was sitting in my parents' garage up in the rafters just waiting, and threw it on for a practice almost 15 years later. And it felt incredible to be back. And like everyone had the newer gear, the sliding, and I was just happy to have pads on and my old bulky skates, the stick that weighed 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Like there was something just felt right about going right back to it, even though I had absolutely no idea what I was doing anymore.
So you mentioned the military. When did you join the military, and why did you join? I know everybody I know that's been in the military or currently in the military. There's always a reason why, and it's never because that was my only option. There's always a deeper reason.
I joined. I signed my formal papers in February 2002. So we had September 11th had just happened a handful of months before.
Yep.
I got a call from a recruiter in December-ish, I think. And
so you had been talking to him prior to then, if you're getting a call.
A few times, because I had dropped out of high school and was getting my GED, so that was kind of held a lot of things up. Because I would have joined September 12th had I had a degree or my diploma or GED at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to go through and do the classes and get all that out of the way. And talk to the recruiter, just happened to get a text message saying, if you're interested, call. I had just lost the job I was at.
Well, to say you got a text message in 2002 tells me you were pretty technology forward at that time.
To an extent, I still had to push your button 3 times.
Oh yeah.
And, it was, I don't know how they sent him out, but he just caught me on the right day and yeah, I'll come in, we can talk. And he just sweet talked me like they always do.
Mm-hmm.
And made no promises other than the job I was going to get that I asked for. And that's all I wanted. I didn't want any special treatment or schools. So I signed my papers in February, came home, told my parents I'm leaving in 2 weeks. They thought I was joking.
And what branch did you sign up for?
I went to the Army.
Okay.
Which, for anyone that does follow this, that's thinking military, go Air Force, Navy, not the Marines, not Army. They're great in their own rights, but looking back on it, I would have loved to go to the Navy or the Air Force after hanging out with a lot of those guys and my time in, my time out. They just nicer amenities. Probably the best way to say it. Where the Army and Marines, you're going to live in subpar housing at times, and it grows on you, and you really appreciate when you get back to something that's really nice. But a huge difference between those two branches against each other, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, went through basic training in Fort Leonard Wood down in Missouri during kind of springish summer, and then graduated just before fall. So I got the fun weather of southern Missouri of it's really cold, it's really hot, it's starting to get really cold again. And our graduation day, I think it was in the 90s and just about 90% humidity, wearing our dress uniforms. And it was just miserable, but it was over and we were just glad it was over.
And, you mentioned the job you wanted. What was your job in the Army?
I went into the military police corps.
Okay.
I followed to an extent of my dad's footsteps. He was in the Army as an MP. And I thought it was just really the coolest job you could get. Be able to go out and help people. It's really not to downplay the job, but it was a lot of waving traffic through.
Yep.
And less of watching cops and always action packed for 30 minutes. And you're like, yes, I get to, lights and sirens, drive to everything as fast as I can. And no, you get there. Yep, you're on bus duty to wave the cars through and get the buses to the schools. And you realize they lied to me. And then
no, they let you become an MP.
Yeah, well, they didn't give us the fun details of the job.
And but clearly your dad didn't either.
No, even in his time, they wore dress uniforms at the gates, and he had, I think, rough compared to what we did. But at least we had normal uniforms. We didn't have to have our fancy uniforms every day to wave traffic through. But I got lucky enough, and I left the original unit I was in and went to a field MP unit where all we did was field work. And that's where I got my opportunities to deploy with the same guys for 2 tours. And it was probably the best decision while I was in the Army to make, was to get away from looking fancy and driving cars to here's your Humvee. Every Monday, we're going to inspect it, make sure it works. And then we're going to go just clean weapons. That was our entire week. You'd go to the field for a little bit, come back, clean. And it was such a simple way of life. But you knew what you were doing every day. You were with the same guys every day. And it just, even being brand new to a group that had gone training for a year before they knew they were playing, like I was welcomed in without question.
Right.
Like I caught a lot of ribbing just because I was coming from the fancy unit that never went to the field, never got dirty. And they took me in and, you know, they got me dirty and they beat me up and they got me into their mindset real quick. And like, it just, that formed those bonds over a couple weeks. And it was like nothing I had been in before, still almost haven't found still to this day. But it's just, there's something about that close quarters. You're with everybody every second of the day. You wanted to go downtown and drink, you went with all those guys because everyone was going downtown to drink.
Yeah.
So you spent, you know, 7 days a week with them.
Yeah, it's not a, oh, we're going downtown if you want to come. It's we're going downtown.
Oh yeah.
So you mentioned two deployments. Where did you go and how did it go?
My first one was 2004. We went to Kandahar, Afghanistan, which for every one of us, except for one person in our 22-person platoon, it was our first deployment. We had never left the country. Our medic, who was the one that did deploy, was in Desert Storm. So he had seen some things before, and he wouldn't, like, he'd give us, you know, what to look for, what to do. But he was like, he had, if you needed a question life lesson about being deployed, he was the go-to, because he was the only one of our small group that ever got on that plane and experienced coming off the back of the plane and to, oh, that's just the engines that are blowing the hot air. And then you're all of a sudden by a tent and it's still 110 and it's 10 o'clock at night. And you go, what did I just volunteer to get myself into the next year or more? And it was the first year, like, it was just a lot of learning, a lot of training with the Afghan police, Afghan army. As weird as it may sound, it's an incredible country to see. Like, some of the architecture and buildings they have are insane. Like, they're just beautiful beyond belief. And then you have the other places that are just, they're crumbling, or they're the mud huts that they see on TV. Like, it's both worlds in one country. Right. And it's just, it's baffling at times. But that one, like, it was a fun, it went quick, as odd as it seems, for a year to just kind of go by. And I thought it would take forever, but it flew by, and it was an absolute blast. When we came back, we all kind of got together once we came back from our leave and rest and kind of reassessed our lives. And we found out there was the opportunity that in 2006, we could go to Iraq, but if we wanted to stay together, we needed to make it known early. And almost everyone from our platoon that we had just deployed with said, yes, I want to come back with these same guys in a year. And let's go. We don't know where we're going to go yet, because that decision wasn't made at the time. And then we found out that we were going to be going to Iraq 06 to 07. And that made Afghanistan at the time look really easy. Like, we got to the main base up in Kirkuk, and we found out the first week we got there, oh, you're going to go down, you know, another 50, 60 miles away from the main base, and you're just going to meet with the guys that you're replacing, then you're coming back. We were told pack for 7 days. We were there for 9 months. And like, our gear got brought down to us, and it was one of the smallest little bases you could see end to end. And like, it was just a tiny little hut. Like, we stayed in like a shipping container, had 4 of us in it. And they were all lined up surrounded by sandbags. And like, that was a shock to the system, just being that close quarters with 4 guys that I knew a couple of them, The other two I didn't know because they were new to us. But you learn how to really adjust to everyone's sleeping patterns and how they, those that snore, those that roll around in their bed at night, because you felt everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you had no space other than your little bed,
Yeah.
a small common area by the door. But it was something else. Like, I absolutely loved it. When we were there, like, we actually saw more action or combat than we ever did in Afghanistan. And that at first was terrifying, but to an extent, you just kind of, when you left the base, you hoped nothing was going to happen, but you anticipated that all hell could break loose, and you wanted to be mentally prepared for it, but you never knew. There were days you went out, absolutely nothing happened for over 8 hours, and you come back, and then you find out a group that went out an hour after you just got their truck blown up, and everyone's fine, but now we have to go out and rescue their truck and take out the tow trucks with them, and then bring it back. And a matter of a couple hours, it could be you're coming in back in safe, or you're coming back in with a wrecked truck and shell shocked and going to see the doctor to make sure you're still all there.
Yep.
But yeah, that
going to the doctor to make sure you're at least physically okay. Doesn't matter about mentally. I mean, you're a goalie, so they knew to begin with that was, not going to be a good. That was like when I was in college and I had to go to the trainer to see if I had another concussion. They're like, it's really hard to tell with you because you act that way normally. It's like, thanks, guys.
Like, I've done, once I had gotten out, like, I've gone to get looked at much more thoroughly. And I've gone through the concussion protocols and all of that just to get them a baseline. And if they were to do it before I had ever joined to now, I don't know that a whole lot would change, at least to me. But even as a goalie, like, I know I got hit in the head numerous times younger when we didn't have the fancier helmets that are out today.
Yep.
And, like, I had my old Cooper bubble cage was what I wore most of my youth goalie career, and take a puck to that, catch a stick to that, just kind of shake it off. You're okay. Well, and concussions weren't a big thing early on.
What we've learned in recent years too is everybody reacts different. I remember in college, I got a concussion one week, and when my teammates got one the next week, he's never really been the same since. And I was just kind of like, once the headaches and stuff wore off, I was fine. As I look back, there's probably some long-term stuff with like migraines that I get, but for the most part, knock on wood, I've been okay. But this fella, not the case. I probably sustained the worst, the harder hit and, the brunt of it, but our brains are all different. We all react different. Just like, when you were over there, some of the stuff you saw, some of you were able to handle it better than others because mentally we all handle things different. So the brain is a interesting thing. It's not like with a broken arm where we can look at an x-ray and go, yep, that's fixed. Because there's some understanding, but it's just so complex to say whether or not something has healed up here is a lot harder that they found. And we can't just say, you're not seeing it stars anymore, you're good to go.
Well, yeah, that was always, I think, the biggest thing. The few times like our trucks would catch part of a blast is, how many fingers am I holding up? Do you feel nauseous?
Yeah.
Here's some ibuprofen. Come see me in the morning. We'll check on you again. And that was that.
Yeah.
It very well could have been, we got, the quick knockout blow and kind of came back. You're like, yeah, I feel fine. Everything's still here. Give me some stuff for the ache and the headache.
Yeah.
I'll go to bed. I'll see you in the morning.
But whenever somebody, gets hit in the head and they say, how many fingers am I holding up? I always think back to that scene from the Mighty Ducks with Carp. He wouldn't know anyway. That's always the thought I have. But the good news is you came back from both tours, and after some time you got out of the military and decided, hey, let me put the pads back on. What was it that, made you want to put them back on?
I think for me, because growing up, like there was never an adult hockey that I remember being a big thing. Like you played through high school, if you made it and you continued your career, good for you. But kind of like the era I came up in, close to the same era as you, if you didn't go to college, your time was really seemingly done. And I got out and like kind of trying to find my way, and just happened to get past an article by my parents that was talking about a hockey team that's adults and it's all veterans. And like, okay, that sounds interesting. I reached out and like, yeah, if you've got equipment, bring it, come skate, see how it goes. And to me, that was just the most bizarre thing, was coming back as an adult, that I get to go and play a kid's sport and I'm in my 30s now. Like, I never thought this would happen. And luckily enough, like I didn't come out and fall or get hurt myself. And as soon as I came onto the ice and was in the locker room with the guys, like the rush of feeling like I was where I wanted to be was right there. And it was almost, other than my skills were slow and still catching up on the changes, like I go out on the ice, I feel at home. Like that is, I walk through those doors and it's me versus whoever's coming at me. It's no longer I have home problems or I have, chores I got to take care of in the yard and the kids have this or that. This is for me, this next hour is my time.
Yeah. I call it my therapy every week. It's my hour of therapy, being out on the ice. And you're right. Like, in this digital world, if a commercial comes on TV, I feel like I need to look at my phone right away. If, there's that short attention span now, and there's always something to do at home. But once I get to that rink, there's just like this sense of relief once you walk into that locker room, where it's like, okay, there's only one thing for me to do for the next hour and a half. And that's get ready to play, take my equipment off and have a beer.
Yep.
That's the only expectation.
Like that's, I think the best thing being an adult playing hockey is you get the later race, then it can suck waking up in the morning. You get done and you can still just relax. Mm-hmm. Like I know I'd come home, the kids are in bed and asleep. My wife and the dogs, they're in bed and asleep. And I get to come home. I still get to relax a little bit, unwind from playing and let that energy kind of tone itself down and then go to bed. Yeah. Because everything else has been taken care of either before I left or while I was gone. And it's just, I think the best part of being an adult still playing is my kids are older, so it's less of a hassle of, oh, where's dad? But now I get to, I'm going to hockey. Okay, have fun. Okay, I'll see you in a couple hours. I'll have a couple beers, talk to, for the most part, depending on what league I'm skating in, I meet new people every season. Mm-hmm. And then there's guys that I've played with the past 5-6 seasons where we just keep coming back while we're on the same teams or different teams. And it's kind of just nice to immerse myself with other people that we probably wouldn't meet any other way. Yeah, exactly. And, you mentioned the kids. My son, he's at the point now, if it's, if there's not school on Monday morning, he's like, well, maybe I'll come to the game with you. It's kind of funny that like, they want to come watch you play. And ref's always like when he comes, because he'll sit in the, penalty box and he'll put the goals up for them. And they're like, sweet, I don't have to hop in and do it, because I don't know. I don't know. Some people might call me a helicopter parent or whatnot, but I don't trust him running around the rink not to get in trouble. So I'm like, you either have to be on the bench with the helmet or sit in the penalty box so I can see at all times. Because as a goalie, it's not. I don't want to be looking all over the rink looking to see where he's at. But if I know he's in the penalty box, he can't get too far. And so the refs always like when he shows up. And I know when you started playing again, you were playing on warrior teams, and yep. as most hockey players know, those are teams made up of vets, and it's not just an idea of, oh, let's have a bunch of vets play together. Like kind of the last 2 weeks I've had, Kurt from the FDNY hockey team and Mike from the NYPD,
And those are teams where, firemen, policemen get together, play some hockey. But these warrior teams were specifically put together for the vets when they come home to be surrounded with other vets doing something outside of the military, almost as a healing process. How important was hockey to that healing or reintegration process when you got back?
Early on, like probably the first year that I was amongst the programs, like it was huge. Like there's, as I've told some people that ask about it, like playing in a locker room with just guys, like when we do the Sota Stick Classic, it's good for the good. You'll meet a lot of new people. Everyone has kind of stories and you'll share and talk in the locker rooms. And you get that great hockey feeling and you feel comfortable as it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk into a locker room that's all the military guys, regardless Army, Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, Navy, there's an energy in the locker room that is unlike anything you can really imagine. Like it overcomes you for those of us that kind of really miss that camaraderie and closeness of walking in there. And these are guys that we'd never served together. We were in the same times, but they were guard, reserves, somewhere else active. But we all have the same stories, whether it could be in a different country, it could be in the same place at the same time. And we just missed each other by a matter of 10, 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are, years later, and, oh, you were deployed to here. Where were we at? I was at that same base. And all of a sudden you start comparing your times there and how much changed, and just be able to talk to other vets in a sports setting, I think makes it a lot easier to open up and talk about feelings that a lot of people may not just quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
Of being deployed, being away from friends and family for years at a time, that they understand. Sometimes we have parents that'll come and watch. They understand that same difficulty, but as a parent. So if my parents come, they meet with some of the other parents of the guys on the team, and they can talk about their experience of, God, I remember watching them leave and doing their, farewell ceremonies. And I can't imagine how other people feel. And all of a sudden, here's another parent that's been through the same thing. They can talk. So I think all in all, it's great for everyone that's involved. The kids get to meet when they show up.
Mm-hmm.
But for us that play, it's just such a bond that is unbreakable. Even if we do something stupid outside of hockey and people get in trouble for it, you can still come back to that locker room and still feel a part of everything. And if you need help getting through something because of that, they're there for you. Like
Yep.
It's, we may be out of the service, out of our uniforms, but if you call me at any time or text me, reach out to me in the parking lot while we're having beers, like I'm here for you 100%. Like, I don't care what it is, but it's that bond that I had when I was in has carried on to the outside life that I have now. But it's still that I feel the need to help in need when they need it, or just be there to make a dumb joke that only those guys would really understand and find funny. That also remember that you're part of this, to an extent, elite community that signed a contract, you went, you did what you did, and now you're back. And now you get to go and play hockey and
Mm-hmm.
have fun playing hockey.
Yeah, and I mean, there's warrior tournaments, seems like all over the place, and teams all over the place. It's definitely something that's caught on. And, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. My dad was a fireman, and different but same in certain aspects, in that they see things the common person doesn't see and have to go through. And there's something about just being around people that do the same job and understand that we don't have to talk about what we see or did or do, but just being able to talk, and other people kind of pick up on the sensitive topics, and they're able to sometimes change topic so that you don't go down to that dark place. Or if you are in that dark place, they're able to help and understand better than the common person per se.
Oh yeah, like even with some of the tournaments and invitationals that since 2012 when I joined, till now. Like I've gotten to go both sides of the coast, gone down south to play, gone to the Midwest to play other teams, and just even meeting, like as much as it's exploded since I first started playing, to meet guys that come to a tournament up here or wherever we may meet them, and that this is their first full-time experience playing hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've done practices, but they've never done the full game because they grew up in Texas or California or somewhere where hockey just, it wasn't a way of life at the time. And they got out and they heard about the programs and joined. And also, like, I have, friends in all different states that I would have never met
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't through going and playing hockey other places, and just giving each team their due in inappropriate memes or just calling them out, just to kind of build that a fun rivalry.
Right.
So that when you do meet that one time or repeated times, like you can always go back. And I remember game one we played you, and it was a blowout on our end. Now we're playing games and it's coming down to the wire. And it's just amazing how fast people pick up and adjust, and the bonds are built over playing hockey.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
Well, and I think what's helped too with the Warrior teams is the fact that so many NHL teams have really adopted their local Warrior teams and support them, which is awesome. I still remember there was a Warrior team playing in the Super Rink league in one of the seasons, and it's our first game playing against them, and we played well and we beat them, but we're walking out to the parking lot and one of the guys is carrying his prosthetic leg over his shoulder, the one he wore while he skated, and we're all like, he was one of their better players, and we didn't even realize. It was just we were all pretty impressed. Granted, one of our teammates used to play for that team, and we're all talking about our concussions in the locker room. The one day he goes, yeah, my concussion, all I remember is I was in Iraq 1 minute and I woke up in Germany 3 weeks later. We're all like, way to bring the mood down, Dave. Yeah. But,
yeah.
Like, so it was a bad concussion, we take it. Looking on Instagram, it looks like you've got something in the works of possibly a new Warrior team. Is there anything you care to share there? Is that something that's still in the early brewing process?
Still very early on. Like there's to an extent, a lot of moving pieces, but the key people are aligned is probably the best way to describe what's going on. But it's going to be same general concept, but it's kind of, we're descending from a program to our own. That's going to it's going to be a branch off to an extent, but it's the same thing. We just want to play hockey. Like we'll go and we'll play outside this year, just be together, play, have fun, bring our families out, do barbecues, just keep the family camaraderie together.
Yeah. Less formal, more fun.
Yep.
Which I meant to ask earlier, when you've gone to any of these tournaments, have you run into anybody you had served with, or it's just like, oh my God, didn't expect to see you here?
There's a couple that I've talked to, and I think one's local, but we were at the same base at the same time. And like, I'm sure we sat and had dinner together a few times because I recognize them, but I could never really pinpoint from where. And we had talked a couple times, and he told me the unit he was in and what I was in. And then we kind of got into the deployment stories and like, where were you at? And, well, we were there, at the same time, but they were on a 2-week rotation coming through. So they were there every 3-4 weeks, going for 2 weeks, off 2 weeks, back for 2 weeks. And we were there nonstop. And I'm pretty sure there were numerous times where we sit there and we're having dinner together. And like, we didn't talk then because infantry and MPs didn't really talk a whole lot. And all of a sudden you come back and you're in the locker room and war stories come up. And like, I'm pretty sure I sat across the table from you having dinner.
Yeah.
And we'd never talked. And all of a sudden here we are playing hockey on different teams, 10 years later. And I don't know how it, works out to do that, but it's always when you meet somebody that you saw downrange or worked with downrange, and all of a sudden you're back in the completely different environment. It's amazing just how much we have all changed from being the downrange, we're hard asses and you don't show emotion, you try and stay as professional as possible at all times, to you're back here, life is normal, and you can be as dumb as you want. You can let your normal goofiness out, and no one's going to look at you twice and like, I don't know what's wrong with him. And those of us that have done it, like, I know where he's coming from.
Yeah.
There was a time that you wanted to always be serious, and now that serious part of your life is over.
Yeah.
Now it's time to just start enjoying being able to be fun and outgoing and less restricted.
Absolutely. So I'm keeping an eye on time because I want to be respectful of it. And if you've listened to any of the previous podcast episodes, I ask a list of 10 rapid fire questions. Same questions to every guest I've had, from my very first guest of Bones to, NHLers like Eddie Belfour and Kelly Rudy. So it's really fun to hear goalies of all ages and skill levels answer these questions. So the first one, what's the craziest coaching moment from your playing days?
Oh, I think, well, it'd probably be more recent. There was an inappropriate situation that we had, where it was our trophy from a tournament down in Florida, it was an adult related trophy that was handed out to the worst player of the game. And our coach at the time was walking in, and someone had gotten in. There was a whiteboard in the locker room, and they wanted to see if it would stick to the whiteboard. And as soon as they threw it, it hit the whiteboard, and our coach walked in and got hit in the face with it. And I'll just kind of leave it at everyone's idea of thinking what it could have been. But it was a gift that it was just one of those lighten the locker room heat at times, and you never wanted to be the player to get it, but if you did, you took it in stride and just laughed about it. But yeah, the coach walked in, had hit the whiteboard and kind of caught him right in the face.
So what you're saying is you didn't want that in your hockey bag going back through the TSA line.
No, that from what I found out later on was the original intent, but the person that they put in his bag did not check his bag. He put it in a trailer that got pulled down.
Oh,
okay. They were hoping he'd get stopped at TSA and have it pulled out.
I've heard some good stories of those happenings. So the next question, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
I'm going to go with Belfour. I have one that I had done up when I first got back and had money and could afford to get a mask painted. And I went with a green and gold, but the Belfour Eagle.
Which one? Because he had a couple different iterations. He had that original one. He had the next one that had the talons. Then he had kind of when he first started with Miska, he had the realistic looking eagle. Then he went to that stylized one. So which one did you have?
It was probably one of the earlier ones with the Blackhawks. It was not overly over the top, like some of the ones got later on where it got more stylized and adjusted, but the original kind of the eagle look with the Dallas kind of coloring behind it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's one of Belfour is my favorite. I love that mask, but I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like getting the eagle on my helmet now would just seem too cliche.
Yeah. Like I feel it, and especially when people see it the few times I wear it, like to me, it's an incredible mask. I love just being in that era and watching him.
Yeah.
You know, against the North Stars, all the history there. But he was always just phenomenal to watch. Always had a great looking mask every time I saw it when he changed teams, and how it just, for him, it evolved over time. And like, it was just a cool mask growing up watching him play.
Yeah. So, as we talk about masks, yours is pretty cool too. It's clearly got some, personal aspects to it. Explain your mask to those that probably haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's kind of the older, it's the digitalized camo from the time I was in for the most part. But
Mm-hmm.
on both sides, like people have on their cars the little country stickers,
Mm-hmm.
or I ran the 26.2 sticker or whatever it is for the marathons.
Yeah, I don't like
But I
those
have the
people.
initials for Iraq and Afghanistan are on both sides as one of those stickers. So those are both on the sides of the chin. Got the team name on the front, and then like it's got a little bit of a tribute to John Casey with the stars on the top of the helmet, but they're very kind of faded into it, so they're
Mm-hmm.
not overly noticeable unless you're looking. The one side has both my unit patches from when I was in, and then the other side has my unit's logo, which was Strong Arm, where it's the arm kind of flexing, holding the lightning bolt is on the other side, and that's just kind of a tribute to all the guys I deployed with. And for 2 tours, we're buddies to this day. We talk every once in a while, and that unit has since been closed and moved up to different units. So it's my tribute to those that were before us and those that
Mm-hmm.
somewhat came after us.
And is that mask, is that a wrap or was that painted?
That one's paint. I have one that's wrapped that I wear more now, but that one still my first one I ever had painted, and still one of my favorites that I wear.
Because I'm interested with the wraps. They seem to have come a long way, and they seem pretty darn durable. And they're not as cheap as I think people would anticipate, but they're still cheaper than getting them painted, and you can get pretty cool stuff on them. So I've kind of been exploring that option.
Yeah, the one that I wear that's become my day-to-day mask I had wrapped by a guy in Elk River that I knew a couple guys that had phenomenal work done, and they passed him along, and like we talked and I gave him ideas and he came up with the concept. And
I've got an idea in my head of what I want my mask to look like. There's one sticking point to get it, to tie it all together. I got an awesome college helmet. I got an awesome high school helmet, and there's a way to somehow blend the two. I just haven't come through with it yet. So the next question, what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
even though it's gone, Bet Center.
Okay.
I got lucky enough, like when the Norths left and they had the building for like 2 more years, they were kind of doing what XL does, where every once in a while teams can rent the ice and you get to go and skate on the pro sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a chance, I think it was 93, to go and skate at the Bet Center after the North Stars were gone. But it was still, for me, it was the Met.
Yeah.
I got to go and wear my gear and be on that ice and skate there. And it just, that's one that's always kind of been there for me. Like I love the Met, even though it was old and very small, but it was such a fun place to be at.
It's funny. I didn't grow up in Minnesota, but still when I go to IKEA, I'm still like, yeah, this used to be the Met. And now that the Thunderbird's gone, it's just kind of like, even though I didn't grow up here, I still look at it and cringe like, it's a shame. So there's a question I like asking goalies is, what's your favorite stick that you've used?
As much as it still weighs a ton, the old Christian sticks, like
yes,
the Christian USA, weaved whatever it was and painted, but the black ones with the white lettering. Yeah, I still have them sitting in my garage with my normal carbon sticks now. And like some days I think maybe I should just take it out and see. Then I lift it up and nope, I'm not taking that with me anywhere. And I just go grab my really light ones. But I grew up with, that was my stick of choice as a kid. And the fact that I've had them almost 30 years and they're still in one piece.
Yep.
Just testament to the quality.
Every single Christian goalie stick person I know that's used a Christian goalie stick has had the same story too, in that, when that heel starts going, you throw a little wood glue in there and set it in the clamp overnight and get a little bit more time out of that stick, and then you just load up on the tape and that heel. I mean, that's why goalies like you and I took that tape up over the heel growing up. It was to try and preserve the heel. Now kids if they do it, just do it because it looks cool, not because there's any real reason to.
Yeah, I catch myself even doing it when I retape my sticks now. Like I still get to the heel and I keep going, and
Yep.
like, it feels weird not to go past it. And I understand, with technology and everything changing, but to me, it's still, that's the golden standard, is above the heel. Because
Yeah.
somehow I'm saving this stick from getting beat up on ice that's 10 times better now than it was 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm saving it.
Well, and it's funny because those old, the Christian six and the wood six of the time, like you retaped your stick so you had a good layer of tape on there to help protect it from the water and the ice. Whereas today, I mean, some people tape the stick to get a little better, feel of the puck, but you really don't need to tape your stick if you're as bad at playing the puck as you are like me. There's not a need. Yeah. But I love those Christian six. I used them through college. We were still getting them. It's probably the end of, Christian making that style of stick. I know there's a Christian hockey stick out there now, but it's not the same Christian Brothers, and it's not the same design. But I've actually been looking at them because they have a foam core option, and it's like I could get 3 foam cores for the price of one really nice composite stick. I've been considering that here lately. So what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Yeah, that's, I think, more challenging than anything else. Like growing up, like it was always just for me to be able to play and be the only goalie on the team was the coolest thing. Because for whatever reason, but the year I grew up, we always had multiple goalies, so you split time, and you either skated out or goal, or you sat on the bench and waited and opened the doors.
Yeah.
But I want to say it was like my second year of Pee Wees, or Squirt, one of them. But the goalie for the Bantam team had something go on, and he was removed from the team for whatever reason. And I was an extra goalie on my team, and that just kind of reached out to both of us. And would you like to come up and play in Bantams a year early, even though you're still undersized? You've still got another year down, but you want to come and play. And I said, hell, why not? I'll do it. And I'm going up against kids that are 3-4 years older than me, taking at the time what I thought were some of the hardest slap shots I've ever seen.
Yep.
And just getting blasted. But I was an entire team, even though they were older than me, took care of me like I was one of them. Even though I shouldn't have been up at that level at that time. But it was just, I got to hang out with the older kids and play with the older kids. And they took great care of me and got me through it.
That's awesome. So transitioning, what's the best chirp you've heard? Usually I say on the ice, off the ice, but this could go many different places with you.
I think the one that I've always hoped for, and I actually had the T-shirt for a while, was the good game, FU, good game, good game, as you're going through the handshake line. And I actually had that happen at a tournament. And it was a game that we won, but it was down to the wire close. And I'm assuming it was one of their better players that I got one of the lucky, miraculous, I knew what I was doing saves that kept him from scoring either the tying goal or a winning goal. And like we were just going after each other back and forth the entire game. And, your mother this, your mother that, just because he would be in the crease kind of pushing back a little bit, and my guys would come push him, I'd push him. But I was going through the handshake line, and I've always dreamed of that moment that as a goalie, you've pissed somebody off enough that they're not going to give you the good game. And like that happened. I got in the locker room and I celebrated that single moment. Even though we won the game, I got that moment where I bothered a player that much and just ruined his game of hockey for that day.
Yep.
That he needed to make sure that he came out and told me he did not appreciate me.
Well, next time we play each other, I'm going to have to remember that, and I will be sure to, greet you appropriately. It's funny you say it, because there was in Chicago, you don't play for your community like you do in Minnesota. You play for an association, and then you can either go, private Catholic school, or you go to your community high school. Well, most of us went from my association, went to one school. I went to another one. And then there was this one kid that they moved, so he went even further away, and we wind up playing them. And, it was like the first time we'd seen each other in 3 years. And the whole game, we're just being ruthless to each other, saying things. The refs are giving us warnings, and we're just laughing. We're like, he's my buddy. Like, it's all good. And they're like, well, you can't be saying that stuff on the ice. So, we're going through the handshake line, and, we kind of pulled back a little bit, like we were going to punch each other. It's like, no, then we gave each other a hug. But it's just funny. I think we both instinctively did it just to get under the ref's skin, because I know they weren't too excited when they thought they were going to have to break up a fight. So what is the worst post-game beer?
Warm hams.
Yeah.
I've had it once at one game. Like, it wasn't hot, but it was warm. And I'm like, give me a natty light, I can handle. PBRs, I can handle. A warm hams is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Even
cold hams on a good day is pushing it. So yeah, I can see how a warm one wouldn't be good. So we've alluded to the sticks a little bit. When you tape it, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
I start, because I do 2 layers of tape on mine regardless. It's just how I go. But I'll start at the toe, because I wrap a little extra at the toe.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go all the way to the toe or the end, and then come back.
Okay. So you can, in a way, you do it both.
Yes. I've always, like, it seems weird, especially when I go to rip it off, and it's just, I question why I put 2 layers on.
Yeah. So
but then I go back and I put 2 layers on.
You're talking about not using the Christian stick because the new ones are so much lighter, but with all the tape you put on there, does it really matter?
I don't think so, other than like catching a really good shot right on the stick itself.
Yeah.
And you get that vibration through the hand. That's about the only difference.
Okay. All right. So what's your favorite number to wear and why?
What was that one?
What is your favorite?
It broke up a little bit.
Oh, okay. So what's your favorite number to wear and why?
As a goalie, 39. I know that you claim that's your number, but I will say it's mine before yours. But watching Hasek, like, he was just such a phenomenal, almost gymnast-like in net at times. And just kind of watching his journeyman career from the Blackhawks to Detroit to Buffalo, he was just a phenomenal. Everywhere he went, he was phenomenal.
Yep.
If I'm a skater and I have a choice, I go with 17 for Basil McRae.
Okay. You know, he knew Gordo back when he was a player. You see, now I've told the story. I wear 39. 35 was my number in high school. I wanted that in college, but we had an upperclassman goalie that had 35 when I got to college. So I went to the cabinet with the jerseys and I found the biggest one they had, and it happened to be 39. And it fit my style of play. So ever since then, that's been my number. It works. Although I've toyed with the idea of maybe going back to 35 next time we get jerseys, just because, but I don't know. I like 39. It's not a typical goalie number that, even with goalies wearing weird ones these days with like 50 and 88, you're still not seeing the kids go out there with 39. So that's another reason I still like it.
It seems like Hasek's kind of flown under the radar when it comes to being a number 39 goalie that never quite caught the steam of the younger goalies.
Yeah.
Even though he should have. I swear to God, watching you at times, it's like you're just taking his energy and rolling around on the ice, throwing your pads everywhere to just make a save that you stick your arm out and there you have it.
Yeah.
But you feel the need to make a cartwheel out of it, and like, it doesn't make sense.
No, and there are times where I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Yeah, I just like the one picture Landon had shared where I'm literally on the ground on my back with both arms open. But in the picture, you see the puck's right here, and my eyes are actually, if you zoom in close enough, you see my eyes are actually on the puck. And when I sent Landon the picture zoomed in, he's like, oh my God, you really did know where the puck was. It's like, yeah, I had my eyes on it the whole time. It was just, sometimes my body does weird things. That's the only way to explain it. So the last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
That one for me is now being older and having played younger and earlier in my later half of the life. Just take every game and you leave it when you leave the rink. Mm-hmm. Like I see a lot of, like, if for those that follow Goalie Guild or Lift the Mask, like mental health these days for goalies is huge. And had I had that as a kid, I'm sure a lot of things would have been different. But now, like, realizing that I have a bad game, I can't take that home and be mad about it. I'm not going to the pros anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm, shooting, coming up on 40. My prime years of being that NHL e-bug are long gone. And as much as I like to think I could, but that first shot and they score, and like that one kills you anytime. But you just got to shake it off and let it go. But as soon as you come in and out of those doors, just you let the game be. Mm-hmm. If you have for the younger kids, if you have a coach that's on you about it, like just kind of accept what they have to say and move forward and just let it go and just don't let it kind of fester with you. Because if you let it fester, it can just keep getting at you. And that's the biggest thing I think, even as a kid playing, is I let things fester, and I would think about the goal from 2 weeks ago and how it should have never been a goal, but they got it. Yeah. To where now, I give up a goal, I try and laugh about it, and my teammates look at me like I'm weird. But I can't take it seriously anymore. Like I'll play as serious as I can, but if you get a goal, you obviously had more determination to score on me than I had to stop you. Yep. And there's nothing I can do about that.
I think you and I are able to leave the game at the rink a little bit easier because there's beer waiting for us in the locker room. Kids don't have that, for a good reason. But I know that helps me leave the game at the rink a little bit easier. But it's funny you mentioned, just getting over it. In my very first high school start or varsity start, very first shot goes in. And it would have been very easy for me to just be all over myself. And the ref comes to get the puck. He looks at me with a smile on his face and he goes, well, you got that one out of your system. Let's have a good game. And it was just like that right there. It's like, yeah, I kind of laughed about it and I wound up having a good game. I think we lost like 3-2 against a really good team, but it was just kind of like, yeah, just get over it. You have to have that short attention span. That's what my goalie coach has always told me as a kid. And I don't know if you've seen Ted Lasso, but in the early episodes, he says, what's the happiest animal? Goldfish, because they have a 10-second memory. And, if something bad happened on the soccer field, he looked at the guy and said, be a goldfish. And it's like, yeah, so that's kind of my motto now when I'm at the rink. Be a goldfish, get over it, focus on the next shot.
Yep, that's I think the biggest thing I learned after being in the military and getting out is like, just, you got to let small things like that happen. Yeah. Again, you're going to play an adult or ultimately an adult and kid game as an adult, and you get to enjoy it. You don't have expectations like the pro. You may not have training like the pros do. If you make a soft save, good for you. You made the save. You make a spectacular highlight reel save, even better. Yeah. But again, no one's going to remember it the following week. No. There's no point to just dwell on good and bad. Just focus and keep going forward. Yeah, it's funny. I'm filling in for a team this fall season because their goalie is having surgery and they can score. They can score a lot, which is good because I've been having a terrible season. But we still only have one loss on the season.
So I was like, okay, this is good. And the last game, like I let a goal in. We were still up by a couple, and I was upset. And one of my teammates comes by. He's like, dude, look, it's fine. We're doing okay. It's like, I've let 5 goals in today. He's like, yeah, we've got 9 though. So he's like, what's the problem? I don't see it. I was like, I let in a soft goal. He goes, so we'll get it back. He's like, I'll go down. I'll score one right now for you. I was like, well, that would make me feel better. But it's like, sometimes our teammates understand and they're like, yeah, it's okay. So I've taken up quite a bit of time. Where can folks find you on social media if they want to follow you?
Let's see. We've got Instagram and Glorious Beard. When we have tournaments coming up, I'll definitely aim to poke fun at you again. Facebook, just my regular name. Oh, yeah. Then the Minnesota Sentinels, our page is slowly starting to form. Just look it up under Minnesota Sentinels. We're the only one right now. I don't think there's any other Sentinel teams anywhere. But as that goes along, we'll be posting as much as we can to that. Hopefully we'll get that entire team formed up and hopefully even into a tournament with Goons for Good against you or anyone.
Yeah.
But it's starting. I'm on there. If you happen to be in a tournament in Minnesota against me, there's a good chance I'll find you and start making posts just to poke. Never intentionally to make fun of people, but
oh no, I think you're pretty good at the trash talk game. So I appreciate it. It's funny too, because in Minnesota, there's a lot of people that really like to put the trash talk out there, but they can't take it. You're not one of those people, but a lot of the Vikings fans will say they're kind of in the we can dish it out, but we can't take it crowd. But you're not in that crowd, so that was fun. It makes leading up to the tournament so much fun. Because it's like, all right, I got to win this game. I got to go out there. In fact, in that first Sota Stick tournament, when I was going back and forth with Andy, like I got in the locker room and was like, listen, guys, like me and the guy from Arsenal have been going back and forth for weeks. We need to go out there and have a statement game. They're like, we're just meeting each other. I go, I don't care. We need to have a statement game and we need to let these guys know we are better than them. And we did. That was also a game where I wore my Hasek helmet just because. So, well, Michael, thank you for your time. I can't wait till we get on the ice to face off against each other again. Hopefully this time or next time we see each other, you have a little more defense than the last time we were on the ice together, because you didn't get much help in that game. That's for sure.
I hope.
So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Oh, not a problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Michael is a fun guy to talk to. A stick tap to him as well for serving our country and going on 2 deployments. I think his time in the Army made him a great trash talker, and I always appreciate what he has to say about my game. Be sure to find Michael on social media at IngloriousBeard on Instagram. You can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Wash Up Goalie, and I'll pop up. Visit washupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights, and of course, all podcast episodes. If you want some Wash Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to visit my Threadless shop by clicking the merchandise link on my website. If you like this podcast, go listen to the BLPA Big Show. It's the OG BLPA Podcast Network show where a couple of beer league players talk beer league hockey, draft experience shenanigans, and exploits from around the game. Be sure to check out the full line of hockey-related podcasts on the Hockey Podcast Network as well. There are too many to list here, but shows like the Quack Report podcast, the Tell It Avs, It Is podcast, and the King's Den podcast. I need to thank the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music on iTunes or listen wherever you stream music from. I'm always working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you are a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. So, Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Don't think you should show your face around here. So if you got through, you know it's not the end.